In the 1970s and 80s, many of us, influenced by the futuristic visions portrayed in science fiction, movies, and media, believed that by the 21st century, personal jetpacks would be a common mode of transportation. The image of individuals zipping through the skies on sleek personal devices captured our imaginations. This vision of the future was fueled by the rapid technological advancements of the time, including the space race and the rise of computer technology. While jetpacks and flying cars have yet to become everyday realities, the world we live in today has still exceeded our wildest expectations in terms of technological advancement and the increase of knowledge, fulfilling the prophecy found in Daniel 12:4 that many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. One of the clearest examples of this explosion in knowledge is seen in the achievements of SpaceX, a private company that has revolutionized space exploration. Recently, SpaceX's Polaris Dawn crew conducted the first all-civilian spacewalk, marking a monumental achievement in the history of space exploration. Billionaire Jared Isaacman, along with crew trainer Sarah Gillis, took turns floating just outside their Crew Dragon capsule, making this the first privately financed spacewalk. While 700 kilometers above Earth, history unfolded in space. A tech billionaire became the first civilian to take a walk outside a capsule, and he did it wearing a brand new, more modern spacesuit. Just before 7 o'clock Eastern Time this morning, the SpaceX Dragon capsule popped open. Tech billionaire Jared Isaacman then ventured outside. This event signifies a major shift in space exploration, moving it from being the exclusive domain of government agencies like NASA to a more accessible field that private citizens can participate in. Elon Musk, SpaceX's CEO, has a vision of making humans a multi-planetary species. The increase in knowledge and technological capability required to make these missions possible is staggering, representing a rate of progress that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. The advancements made by SpaceX and other private space companies are part of a broader trend of rapid technological growth. Today, knowledge is not only increasing, it's accelerating at an unprecedented pace. We are now seeing advancements in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology that promise to reshape the world in profound ways. For example, artificial intelligence systems can now perform complex tasks that were once the exclusive domain of human experts, such as diagnosing diseases, driving vehicles, and even creating art. The development of AI systems like OpenAI's GPT, which can understand and generate human-like text, is another example of how quickly technology is evolving. Another example of technological advancement that reflects the increase of knowledge is the development of autonomous vehicles. In China, self-driving buses have begun to operate in several cities, offering a glimpse into the future of public transportation.
Hello. Overpricing minibus. As you can see, there are no driver, only a stat number award with a cue.
These buses are equipped with advanced sensors, cameras, and AI algorithms that allow them to navigate busy urban streets without human intervention. The success of these pilot programs suggests that we may soon live in a world where autonomous vehicles are a common sight on our roads, fundamentally changing the way we think about transportation. The concept of self-driving vehicles has expanded beyond cars and buses. Drones are being used for everything from delivering packages to surveying land and assisting in search and rescue operations. These technologies rely on a combination of advanced computing power, machine learning, and real-time data analysis, fields that have grown exponentially over the past few decades. The progress in these areas is not just incremental, it is exponential, reflecting the biblical prediction of an era where knowledge increases at a breakneck pace. The world we live in today is vastly different from the world of even 100 years ago. In the early 20th century, electricity, the automobile, and the telephone were still considered cutting-edge technologies. Today, we carry powerful computers in our pockets, access vast amounts of information with a tap, and communicate instantly with people around the globe. The changes we have seen in just the past 2 decades are monumental, but the rate of change is still accelerating. Looking ahead, it is almost impossible to predict with certainty what our world will look like in the next 10 years, let alone the next century. However, if current trends continue, we can expect to see further advancements that could make today's technology seem as outdated as the horse and buggy. From quantum computing to gene editing, the frontiers of knowledge are expanding at an unprecedented rate. As we reflect on these advancements, it becomes clear that we are living in a time that aligns with Daniel's prophecy about the increase of knowledge. The rapid pace of technological progress is not just a sign of human ingenuity. It is a fulfillment of a biblical promise that in the last days, knowledge would greatly increase. This surge in understanding and innovation serves as a powerful reminder of the times we are living in and the prophetic significance of these developments. In Matthew 24, verses 6 to 8, Jesus describes a period known as the beginning of sorrows, a time marked by a series of distressing events that serve as precursors to more significant tribulations. He mentions that nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. These signs, though alarming, are not the end themselves, but the beginning of birth pains, indicating a world in turmoil and a foreshadowing of even greater upheavals to come. Famines and pestilences are 2 of the prominent signs Jesus warned about during this period of sorrows. We are witnessing a rise in these occurrences today. Famines continue to ravage many parts of the world due to a combination of natural disasters, war, and economic instability. This growing food insecurity aligns closely with the prophecy of famines in the last days. Pestilences, or widespread diseases, are another hallmark of this era. We live in a time when the world has witnessed the rapid spread of diseases on an unprecedented scale. Governing bodies have warned that we are entering a post-antibiotic era, where common infections and minor injuries that have been treatable for decades could once again become deadly. These drug-resistant diseases are not just theoretical threats, they are present realities. For instance, antibiotic resistance is estimated to cause at least 1.27 million deaths globally each year, and the number is rising. The overuse of antibiotics in humans and livestock has accelerated this resistance, leading to superbugs that defy current medical treatments. Matthew 24, verses 6 to 7 also speaks of wars and rumors of wars as signs of the times. Today, we are seeing an increase in conflicts worldwide, both in frequency and intensity. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the tensions in the Middle East, and the possibility of conflict between China and Taiwan exemplify this prophecy. Specifically, the Middle East has long been a hotspot for conflict, with Israel often at the center. One particularly notable conflict is the war in Ukraine, which began in 2014 and escalated dramatically in 2022 with Russia's full-scale invasion. This conflict has not only caused immense human suffering, but has also had significant geopolitical ramifications, drawing in various nations and creating global tensions reminiscent of the Cold War era. In a further show of military power and alliance, Russia launched its largest Navy drills of the post-Soviet era, alongside Chinese warships in the Sea of Japan. This cooperation between 2 major global powers signals a shift in the balance of power and raises concerns about future conflicts involving these nations. Statistically, the number of armed conflicts worldwide has been increasing in recent years. According to data from Our World in Data, there are currently at least 150 ongoing armed conflicts each year, up from previous decades when the number rarely exceeded 100. This increase is largely driven by intrastate conflicts and non-state conflicts, which are now the most common types of armed conflicts. While large-scale wars remain less frequent, the overall frequency of smaller conflicts has risen, indicating a broader trend of increasing global conflict events. This rise in conflicts aligns with Jesus' prophecy that nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, highlighting the pervasive nature of warfare in our world today. As these signs continue to unfold before our eyes, they serve as a reminder of the times we are living in and the need to remain vigilant, watching for the ultimate fulfillment of God's prophetic timeline. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3, Paul warns that before the return of Christ, there will be a great falling away from the faith. Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first and the man of lawlessness is revealed. Similarly, 1 Timothy 4:1 cautions, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in later times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons." These verses prophesy a time when many will turn away from true biblical doctrine, embracing false teachings and ideologies that lead them astray from the core tenets of Christianity. Today, we are witnessing this great falling away from the faith on an unprecedented scale. One of the most prominent examples is the rise of the prosperity gospel, a teaching that distorts the true message of the Bible by equating faith with wealth and health. This doctrine falsely promises that God's primary concern is our earthly success and material prosperity, reducing the gospel to a formula for personal gain rather than a call to discipleship, sacrifice, and service. This teaching stands in stark contrast to the biblical call to take up your cross and to live with an eternal perspective that prioritizes spiritual over material riches. As nations, especially those historically rooted in Christian values, drift away from these foundations, the moral fabric of society begins to unravel. The removal of Bibles and prayer from schools is a glaring example of this shift. Once, these institutions were places where God's principles were upheld, providing moral guidance to generations of young people. Today, instead of prayer, we have metal detectors. Instead of teaching biblical principles, we have security guards patrolling hallways. This shift reflects a broader societal move away from Christian values, replacing them with secular ideologies that often lack the moral clarity and direction that the Bible provides. The decline in adherence to Christian values is not limited to schools. It permeates every level of society, from politics to the media to the family unit. The erosion of traditional family structures, the rise of individualism, and the pursuit of personal pleasure above all else are symptoms of a world that has turned its back on God. As a result, we see increasing rates of depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues, alongside social problems such as crime, substance abuse, and broken relationships. Many argue that we are living in a time of unprecedented progress, but when we look beyond the surface, it becomes clear that the world is not becoming a better place. Instead, it is becoming more chaotic, more divided, and more lost. This moral and spiritual decline can be traced back not to the actions of a particular political party or leader, but to a deeper issue, the abandonment of Christian values. When nations rooted in Christian principles forsake those roots, the consequences are inevitable. Proverbs 14:34 states, "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people." History shows that societies that uphold Christian values, such as honesty, integrity, compassion, and respect for human dignity tend to flourish. They build strong families, communities, and nations. In contrast, societies that reject these values often face decline and decay. As the falling away intensifies, the world increasingly resembles the warning signs described in Scripture. The rise in apostasy is not just a spiritual issue. It has real-world implications for how we live and interact as a society. A world that rejects God and His teachings is a world that loses its moral compass. It becomes a place where right and wrong are determined by personal preference rather than divine truth, leading to confusion, conflict, and ultimately, chaos. It is easy for some to claim that the world is improving with technological advancements and increased knowledge. However, without the guiding light of Christian values, these advancements can lead to more harm than good. In Matthew 24:9, Jesus warns His disciples, "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake." Similarly, in John 15:20, He reminds them, "If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you." These verses highlight a sobering reality for believers. Intense persecution will characterize the end times. This prophecy is increasingly evident today as reports of Christian persecution rise globally, especially in regions hostile to the gospel. As we move further into these perilous times, we see a growing trend toward the restriction of religious freedoms and the outright hostility against those who proclaim Christ. The persecution of Christians is not just a historical occurrence. It is a present and escalating issue. Open Doors, an organization dedicated to supporting persecuted Christians, reports that more than 360 million Christians worldwide experience high levels of persecution and discrimination for their faith. This number represents 1 in 7 Christians globally, underscoring the extent of the problem. In countries like North Korea, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Libya, Christians face severe oppression, including imprisonment, torture, and even death, simply for practicing their faith or owning a Bible. The Bible makes it clear that as we approach the end times, persecution against Christians will not only continue, but will intensify. The global trend toward religious intolerance and the erosion of freedom of speech and religion are clear signs that the world is growing increasingly hostile to the message of Christ. The eventual goal, as prophesied, is a world where proclaiming the gospel openly may become illegal, and believers will have to choose between obeying God or complying with human laws that contradict their faith. This progression is already evident in many places. In certain regions, owning a Bible, meeting for worship, or sharing one's faith can lead to imprisonment or worse. The challenge for believers will be to stand firm, holding fast to their faith despite the growing opposition. In the face of such challenges, the call for Christians is clear: remain faithful. Jesus warned that persecution would come, but He also promised that those who endure to the end will be saved. The church must be prepared to support and encourage one another, standing together in unity as the body of Christ.